gonna tell you a story about the dogfish. He originated off the island of Belize. It's down in Central America, old British Honduras country. Yeah, that's where he began. He has a long journey for that old dogfish, but he managed to scurry on up into the Gulf. That is by way of the Bow River. Bo's here to tell you all about it. Journey out in the Gulf by way of some water, my ladies and gentlemen friends. There's water out there in case you didn't know it. That's where the dogfish plays. Well, it just so happened on our big old boat called the Truman, Bo happened to be propped up on the wheel, done lost her balance, spun around, hit her head on the back, and ditched it.
There's a cat. The cat just came in here. I heard a cat on the end of that. Hey, Tux. You want to come up here? Hello, everybody. Monday night. No guest tonight. Just coming on to visit a little. Play a few tunes. That first cut, which was shocking and horrifying to some, I'm sure, was from a album of original comedy that I put together, created the music for about, oh my gosh, 30, no, it wasn't that many years ago, 25 years ago, something like that. And that first tune we call a Fishtail. And it was created in the guest house behind my mom's house in Amarillo, Texas, as my brother Doug and I sat one night telling jokes and just being silly, and I sat at the electric piano and started just playing that little figure, and he started monologuing this made-up silly story over the top of it, and we started singing, and the next thing you know, it was a song, and I see Rachel joined. Rachel Lanningham, one of my daughters. Rachel, I was wondering, I was wondering what you were doing tonight. I thought I'd have you come on and be my guest on this show. You can send me a direct message in Facebook Messenger if you want, or you can text me. But if you're playing a game, that's okay. I understand. I was thinking about humor tonight, and I decided to play some of the old humor record. Some of the cuts from my singular, oh, well, singular is probably a little ambitious on my part to say, single comedy music release, which I call Big Humor Beat, back in the early 90s. And that was one of the tunes, and my brother and I both sang on that. Now, why does this tell me that I'm about to lose power on my laptop when it's plugged in? Do y'all mind if I check below? I want to make sure it didn't come unplugged. Hold on, I'll be right back. All right, let's see what's going on here. Oh, yeah, it almost fell out. There we go. Now we got power again. All is well in the world. Okay, so this was a time when I was thinking about all the humor that I love in the world, and the great comedians and funny movies, and also it's when I got my first MIDI equipment. I think at the time I had a Roland D50 keyboard, originally a Roland DX7, and a drum machine, and a 4-track cassette recorder. And then I added a few other pieces later, and about the time I did this record, I had gotten into a little bit more elaborate system. And I was living in Dallas, and our first 2 kids were with us, and then one more came while we were in Dallas, and Rachel, who I noticed checked in a little bit later, came on. Yes, that's right, Mike. Mike says there will be a slight delay due to technical difficulties. You can count on that with this show. I can tell you right now, you can just count on that. But anyway, as I was saying, put together a group of songs. I had written this tune called Moose in My House, which some of you have heard of. And it gained some radio exposure in the late 80s, early 90s. We entered it in a little song contest on a station in Houston the one year we lived there in 89, and it won the song contest. And it was given to Rick Dees and Dr. Demento and different DJs around the country, and people started playing it on their morning shows. Many of them took credit for it. But that was okay. I was just glad to be heard on the radio. But that tune was my one quasi-hit, and Monkey Motel came in a close second. And I thought I'd play some of these things for you tonight. Todd Watson. Hey, Todd. Todd Watson, Craig Slover. Hey, Craig. How you doing, man? Anyway, back to what I was talking about. The tunes. So A Fishtail was one of the tunes from that recording. And as I had said, it was put together one night when I was just meandering around on the piano, and my brother started monologuing a story, and then I started singing background vocals, and the next thing you know, we thought it was hilarious, so we built it into a song. And that's where that one came from. And then I ended up recording a number of others to put together an album's worth, because I thought it had a future. I actually went to Nashville and shopped it around. And the one place that showed interest was, I forgot the name of the publisher, but it was basically the publisher for Ray Stevens, the man that wrote The Streak and a lot of other Disco Duck. Didn't he do Disco Duck too? I can't remember. But they liked it, but they said, look, we already have Ray. Why would we need you? And I understood that, although I thought I sounded a lot different from Ray. I'm going to play you another one. I'm going to play you a few tunes from that recording tonight, because everybody needs a laugh, and we need one more than ever right now. Are you right? Am I right, Mike? Am I right? Give me a thumbs up, Mike. So here's the Moose in My House cut, which really started it all. And then I'm going to show you a few other things where I got a little bit more into the music. And there's one cut that Mitch Watkins actually has a guitar appearance and a brief verbal appearance on. That's pretty funny. Anyway, let me see. Let me get Moose in My House queued for you. And then we'll play that one. Let's try this. If I can find the volume knob. Where is it? Here it is. Moose in My House. Nope, that's not Moose in My House. Back up one. Let's try it again.
2 weeks ago, last Monday, I was driving home at night. The guy in front was pokey. He wanted to see the sights. I didn't want to be Gumby, so I switched to passing gear. When I pulled up alongside him, he offered me a beer. Hey man, you want a beer? No thanks, man. You sure? No, I'm Bob. Okay, man, we'll see you later. Pulled into my driveway, walked up to my front door. I went inside and noticed there were hoof marks on the floor. I measured them with utmost care and thought the tracks were deer. Then suddenly it hit me, what was happening in here? There's a moose in my house. I thought it was a deer. There's a moose in my house. But now it's really clear. There's a moose in my house. Got a major problem here. Moose, moose in my house. What am I gonna tell my dog? I checked my mail and found a box from the Sierra Club. I ran into the bathroom and found moose hair in my tub. My bill from Bell had phone calls to the Yukon and Montana. My toothbrush smells like moose breath. I'm missing my pajamas. There's a moose in my house. I don't know what to do. There's a moose in my house. I stepped in moosey poo. There's a moose in my house. My dog is turning blue. Moose, moose in my house. I looked in here, I looked in there, I looked in the dirty clothes hamper. I looked in the backyard and found a troop of Cub Scout campers. I asked them why that they were there, it is my yard, you know. They said we are moose hunters, this is the place to go.
We're moose hunters.
Oh yeah?
They're in your house.
I know. You want to get out of my yard? I know this all sounds stupid, you probably think I'm dumb. You might think I'm a mental case or maybe just a bum. But someday you just might come home and find a big surprise. A moose takes up a lot of space and really draws the flies. There's a moose in my house. I thought it was a deer. There's a moose in my house. But now it's really clear. There's a moose in my house. I should have had that beer. There's a moose in my house. Got a major problem here. There's a moose in my house. I don't know what to do. There's a moose in my house. I stepped in moosey poo. There's a moose in my house. I hope that there aren't two. There's a moose in my house. My dog is turning blue. There's a moose in my house.
Moose, moose, moose.
There's a moose in my
Got
house.
a moose in my house.
There's a moose in my house. There's a moose in my house.
Got a moose in my
There's a moose in my house. Moose.
Okay, so that started it. All right? That was Moose in My House, and that one came to me 1985. I was living in Manhattan. And the 1 year I lived there. I'd been in Austin in those beautiful years. I caught the tail end of the greatest Austin years from a music standpoint, I think, which was the 70s into the early 80s. The Armadillo World headquarters was still alive when I got here. Liberty Lunch was still happening. Kirby Lane Cafe started, and Whole Foods started the year I moved here, roughly 1980, right around there. So it was some glory days of Austin for sure. And while I was here, I got this little bug after I got out of college and was playing in town with different bands and really having a great time. I got this little itch to start combining humor and music and my love for, amped up pop and jazz and fusion and all that kind of stuff. And that's where tunes like Moose in My House and A Fishtail came from. The very first one that came to me was called Roach Boogie. And the house we lived in, Paul McKee, who was on earlier, had been a guest on the show. He and my brother Doug and I lived in an apartment on Bull Creek and 45th Street, about that part of town, just off of Mopac. And it was a great little house. We rented it for like $450 a month, three bedroom, nice little house. No air conditioning, but, you know, we were young and we just left the windows open and put box fans in them. But there was a bit of a roach problem. It wasn't really roaches. It was those water bugs, those big ones that fly, you know, that will find a path into your house. And if you don't use the Orkin man or the Orkin lady, then they start to set up shop, and they'll stick around for a while. And these did. And it inspired the very first song I ever wrote that was a part of the Big Humor Beat album, and it was called Roach Boogie. And I should play a little bit of Roach Boogie for you. Let me see if I can find it. There's the very, very original Roach Boogie was just a Roland. Oh, what was the keyboard? My Doug has one. It's just a little analog synth, and it's got some great bass tones and horn tones. And I had that, and I think I was using Mitch Watkins' Roland drum machine. And I had some kind of mic I found somewhere. It was just those three things. And this was the original Roach Boogie. And then I had two different revisions of that song. But Roach Boogie started it all. So let's play a little Roach Boogie right now. I think it'll lift you up tonight.
You ever come home at night, find things crawling on your floor and bugging you? Well, I do too. And I can't take it anymore. Tell you about a problem we got here in our town. When we come home at night, we see them crawling around. They're ugly little turkeys and they're looking for food. But when they find what I left, it's gonna change their mood. Roaches! Come on over here. There's a little motel with your names written clear. Roaches! Go on inside. It's got 4 white walls and a sticky surprise. This is a Roach Motel, specially designed for you ugly little turkeys. Hop on inside and just boogie around. Roaches check in, but they don't check out. Boogie! Do the Roach Boogie. Get down on the ground and squirm all around. Boogie! Boogie, Roach Boogie. Stomp your feet and hear a crunchy beat. Roaches. I came home one night. They were crawling around on the chicken. They got into cornflakes. They get in the bathtub and all the drains. One time I found one in my bedroom. It's so big it was taking out my laundry. Roaches. Roaches. Roaches! Come on over here. There's a little motel with your names written clear. Go on inside, it's got 4 white walls and a sticky surprise. This is a Roach Motel, specially designed for you ugly little turkeys. Hop on inside and boogie around. Roaches check in, but they don't check out. Boogie! Do the Roach Boogie. Get down on the ground and squirm all around. Boogie! Boogie, Roach Boogie. Stomp your feet and hear a crunchy beat. Boogie! Do the Roach Boogie. Get down on the ground and squirm all around. Put your booty out. Boogie! Boogie, Roach Boogie. Stomp your feet and hear a crunchy beat. Do the Roach Boogie. Get down on the ground and squirm all around. Boogie, Roach Boogie. Stomp your feet and hear the crunchy beat. Boogie.
Yeah, don't you love that fade? I worked hard on the fade on that tune. The production values, it was all about speed and a lack of polish. That was really my philosophy in the beginning there. But anyway, that was Roach Boogie. That kicked it off. And again, that was written, I think that one was written in '84. So this whole process of wanting to create some comedy tunes for a comedy record started around 1984, right before I moved to New York, which is where I actually discovered what real roaches looked like. There weren't that many in Austin, and they were really water bugs. But when I got to New York, I found an apartment, a sublet apartment, this bassist who was traveling. She sublet me her apartment for a year at 79th and Broadway, which, if you've been to Manhattan now, you'll know that, or if you live there, you know that is a very, very expensive area of the city. Matter of fact, where isn't expensive in Manhattan now? But that now is some prime real estate. But I had a third floor walk-up apartment at 79th and Broadway for $215 a month. And it was in a rent-controlled building. It hadn't been updated in a while. It had all kinds of problems. It smelled a little strange. My apartment was on the third floor, which was the top floor, and it was on the back side of the building, which was 2 apartments deep. And it was right above the kitchen of a Chinese restaurant. So I always smelled Chinese food. And the roaches, I'm sure, were all in the walls and everything because of that kind of thing. But man, there were a lot in that apartment. And they, just like Craig Slover, my old buddy from Colorado, said, occasionally if you weren't paying attention, you'd be sleeping and they'd run across your forehead. And that was enough. I couldn't take it anymore. So one morning I went down to the hardware store and I bought one of those bug bombs. And I came back up and I was committed the next morning to setting the bug bomb off as I left to go to my temp job working at a proxy firm down on Wall Street at a phone bank, which was how I was trying to make money during that year I lived there, taking some lessons on drums and trying to get gigs and seeing what I could make happen. Well, I got up the next morning. I got ready to go. I set off the bug bomb. I left the apartment, walked down the 3 flights of stairs, went to the subway station, realized I forgot something that I had to take with me that I had to go back for. So I went back and I went into the bug bomb apartment, holding my breath, trying to get the bug bomb and the stink thing and leave. And I was then covered with the bug bomb stuff. It was a drag. But when I came home, there were hundreds of roaches that had bit the dust, or so I thought. And as I started to sweep them up, they all got up and started running around. So it was at that time that I was inspired to continue to write comedy songs. I thought, you can either be terrified by this stuff in life or you can just look at it and find the humor in it. So it wasn't long after that the lyrics to Moose in My House started wandering around in my head. And they came pretty quickly. The follow-up to Roach Boogie, different theme, same genre. And also while I was in that apartment, I think I worked on, while I was in New York, I did a different version of Roach Boogie because I wanted to be able to release it. And I knew that Roach Boogie, with all those lyrics about Roach Motels, which is, who makes the Roach Motel? I forgot. But I knew that, I probably couldn't talk about the Roach Motel without having to give them a cut or, I don't know, something. I knew there would be some kind of a conflict of trademark or something. So I rewrote the lyrics a little bit, and Mitch Watkins was living in New York, and I wanted a little higher quality in the production value. So Mitch came on board, and I recorded it. I laid the tracks down, and then I went, what did I do? I had the sequence. I recreated the sequence. Actually, I created the first, none of this was, all this was pre-sequencer. So it was played, I would play the stuff into the tracks. But the drum machine, of course, was a program thing. So I went to his studio where he had an 8-track reel-to-reel, laid down the keyboards, and the bass line, little drum machine thing, laid down the vocals, and Mitch laid some guitar on it this time. New lyrics, a little bit different focus, and a little special of verbal appearance by Mitch in the middle. So we should play that one next, I think. If we're going to have the full story of this And so this was the cut of Roach Boogie that happened when I was living in New York City with guest artist Mitch Watkins. And if I can figure out how to click it. Nope, wrong song. Here we go.
You ever come home at night, find things crawling on your floor and bugging you?
Well, I do too, and I can't take it anymore. Tell you about a problem we got here in our town. When we come home at night, we see them crawling around. They're ugly little turkeys and they're looking for food. And on top of all that, they run around in the nude. Roaches! All over the place. They think my house is a cafe. They're crowding my space. Roaches! I'm losing my cool. Now the time has come for me to make some new rules.
Okay, no roaches in the kitchen or bathroom between 8 and 10 in the morning. After I leave for work, you got the place to yourselves. Clean up any messes you make in the kitchen. And when I get home at 6:30, you'd better be scarce until I'm asleep.
And if you can't comply, here's what we're gonna do. Murder! Do the roach boogie. Get down on the ground and squirm all around. Murder! Boogie, roach boogie. Stomp your feet and hear a crunchy beat. Roaches. You know, they get in your stuff, man. I came home the other night and they were in my laundry. And there was this one in the other room. He was messing with my guitar and he was trying to... Roaches! All over the place. They think my house is a cafe. They're crowding my space. Roaches! Get out of my food. If you think that I am kidding, just watch me get rude. Stay out of the bed. Get out of the kitchen. Stay out of the tub. Clear out of the sink. Stay off of my dog. Get out of this food. Crawl on the sofa. Clear out of my shoes. I hope you're taking me seriously, 'cause if you don't comply, here's what we're... Bitch, there's a roach on your leg. Gonna do boogie! Do the roach boogie. Get down on the ground and squirm all around. Boogie! Boogie, roach boogie. Stomp your feet and hear a crunchy beat. Put your boogie out. Boogie!
Did you know that roaches have been around for millions of years?
And they're gonna be here long after we're gone too.
They're nuclear. They don't even ever get dead.
But we can afford some background singers, man. I'm tired of doing the boogies and talking about the roaches, because they're Okay, I compromise. I won't be in the house from 8 to 10 in the morning. You guys can have it. You go to work and I'll clean up the messes in the kitchen. And when you get home, if I can, maybe I can find a day if I can go out on town and is that a deal, please? I can't tell you.
Okay, so that was the second version of Roach Boogie that was cut in 1985 in New York. Mitch Watkins added on guitar. A little bit higher quality vocals and production, maybe, smidgen higher quality. If you heard the earlier 4-track cassette version, you understand what I'm saying. Anyway, Mitch was playing those crazy guitar licks at the end, and I just basically got down on the floor and started messing with his pedals while he was playing, and that's the reason those sounds were going all over the place the way they were. But that was a lot of fun. I can't believe I can't find the original recording of Moose in My House. I would love for you to hear it, because it actually has a trombone solo on it. A dear friend of mine and great musician, Chris Sider, trombone player, who was living in New York at the time, and whose house I stayed at for a while when I first moved there. They put me up, and his wife helped me find a day job in Manhattan, to help pay the bills. And when I first cut Moose in My House, Chris played a trombone solo on it, which I thought was really special. But for the life of me, I can't find that recording anywhere of it. I think it went out in a great cassette tape purge that happened in my house a number of years back, and it was me who purged them. I don't know why. I just lost my mind and threw away a bunch of tapes. But anyway, so those two tunes happened that year in New York, and then other crazy things were happening. But fast forward a few years, couple years, that's when I was in Boston working in radio, and that's when Moose in My House was actually re-recorded in the final version that you all know and love. I did record another version of it with lyrics that were slightly refocused from a kid's perspective, and that was to try to get it some airplay on satellite radio. That was much later, because they didn't want to play it because I said the word beer in it, and maybe because I said it in some kind of positive context, but whatever. So I tried to give them a version that would work, but it wasn't really inspired, and it wasn't really finished, and so I kind of shelved that. Although I am, by the way, I'm working on a sequel to Moose in My House. All these years later, what's happened to the dude and what's happened to the moose. And my lyrics are about 3/4 done on that. I may cut that one soon and share it with you guys. But it was 87 when Moose in My House was recorded, 89 when it was entered on the radio show and won. And for the next few years, it was played by Rick Dees. It was played by Dr. Demento. It was played by Pirate Radio, Scott Shannon out in L.A. It was played on a lot of radio stations. And I even made some publishing money off of it. It was never released as a product for sale, but it did get some exposure. That was a lot of fun. And then it was around the early 90s that I decided that I wanted to try to create a fuller album's worth of these kinds of tunes and see if I could get them published, get an album released or whatever, or at least get some more of this material out there. Some of it was inspired by, there was a radio morning service, comedy kind of morning zoo content service called TM Comedy Network out of Dallas. A friend introduced me to a contact there. The guy running that thing liked Moose in My House. He wanted to know if I could write more tunes like that and Roach Boogie, and I said sure. And he said we'll put them on our distribution so you can get them on these morning shows. But he said the catch is you won't get credit as an author. They may even claim ownership of them. I said I don't care as long as I get to keep the copyright, and he assured me that was fine. And of course we had to fight about that later, but they said who cares? Nobody cares about this stuff anyway. So I said good, thank you, I'll take it back. So anyway, a number of other tunes were written over the next couple of years in kind of a rush of creativity. And things evolved, and the first tune I played, A Fishtail, came out of that period, and there were a number of others. I'd like to play a few of them for you. The next one that I think I wrote was called Hairdo Blues. Has anybody ever had a bad hair day? Then I think you'll relate with this one. This is Hairdo Blues.
In the morning, look at my hair. Oh my, I think a bird built a nest up there. Must have slept crooked, got a crease in my face. If my girlfriend saw me, she'd be pulling out her mace. I wanna see my girl, but I don't wanna frown. You see, the big problem is my barber's out of town. I got the hairdo blues, and I don't know who's gonna cut it. Take a little off the sides, keep it out of my eyes, but please, just don't flub it. I went into the hair place, took along my creased face, told them that I wanted a cut. They said, Joe's out of town, don't want to see you frown. This gal cut your hair, his name's Mutt. I settled in the chair with a look of despair, cause Mutt's hair was worse than mine. When Mutt began clipping, my life started slipping. This guy can't cut a straight line. Yeah, how do you like it so far?
I got the hairdo blues, 'cause a guy named Mutt just blew it. Joe's out of town and wanna see you frown. I can't believe I let him do it. I got the hairdo blues, this guy can't cut a straight line. I should've known better, could've come back later. Mutt's hair was worse than mine.
And now for the finishing touches.
What kind of a haircut is this?
It's my latest, man. It's the Rap Rastafarian Mohawk Cornrow Matte Beehive with a reverse obtuse angle part. What do you think?
What do I think?
Hey, stay away from me with that hairdryer, man. Just back off.
I said stay away.
Hairdo blues, 'cause a guy named Mutt just blew it. Joe's out of town, I'm looking like a clown. I can't believe I let him do it. I got the hairdo blues, this guy can't cut a straight line. I should've known better, could've come back later. Mutt's hair was worse than mine. I got the hairdo blues, and I don't know who's gonna cut it. Take a little off the side, keep it out of my eyes, but please just don't fuck it. I got the hairdo blues, this guy can't cut a
So that's Hairdo Blues. Anybody that's had a bad hair day understands where I was coming from. I was laughing looking at Craig Slover's comment that this song must have really struck a chord deep with me emotionally. That I had fixed the problem. I guess he's referring to my lack of hair on my head now. That's good. That's good. And yeah. You know, as it began to fade or gravitate south or whatever it is that hair does to men as they age sometimes, there came a point when it was just like, why fight it, you know? If you can't, beat it, then join it. And I just went, and I've been able to cut my own hair ever since. It's pretty simple. You just take out your razor, and at one time I used a number 2 and then a number 1 comb, and then finally I just don't use any at all. It's just, as soon as I can feel it, it's just a little bit too long, and it's time to cut that hair. Jarrett Battenberg is my nephew, one of my nephews, and he lives in California, and he has joined. And he's asking, he knows these songs. He grew up hearing that cassette, along with his siblings and other extended members of our families. And he asked about the one Hijack. I'm going to play Hijack for you, Jarrett. I'm going to. There was a time when it was considered maybe something that maybe we couldn't play, that it was too close to the terrorism thing and all that. But I think people can laugh at it. Don't you? Yes, he says not anymore. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of flying going on right now anyway. I'll play that one. Before I do that, I want to play another little piece of music that I wrote a few years during those years in Dallas. I made a very dear friend named Gerald Stockton, extremely talented writer and arranger. We both worked at a place called MPT, actually, Merriman Patrick Turner Productions, that produced library music, production library music, and jingles and all kinds of stuff. Tom Merriman was a great composer and wrote film music, wrote music for commercials and radio stations, wrote all kinds of stuff. And he was one of the owners of it, and was really a mentor to Gerald and to all of us in some form. But he was a fantastic, a talented man and a great person to know. Gerald Stockton I met, who was a University of North Texas graduate and 1 O'Clock Lab Band bassist, and I think the only one that ever made the 1 O'Clock playing electric alone. He was that good at it. He's a South African that migrated to the United States to go to school, and just a hilarious guy too. We did such good friends, and we had so much fun during those few years, that 2.5-3 year period in Dallas, that we just had laughs. We laughed all the time. It was constant and continuous laughing. He had a wedding band, and he had booked me to play for a wedding. And this was later when I wasn't living there. I'd moved to Austin. But I had said, yes, I'll be there and we'll do the gig. And I had written it down and it was months away. And I just blanked on it. I forgot about it. And the day of the gig, he sent me a text or something and he said, dude, what time do you get here? And I'm like, oh my God, I've totally forgotten. I can't be there. And something else was going on so that I couldn't really jump in the car and drive the 3+ hours to Dallas. But he had to find somebody at the last minute. It was very hard. I'm sure it really hurt his feelings because we were good friends. And I hadn't seen him in a while. And I felt very bad about what had happened. So I thought the only way I can apologize to him, and he knew that this was true, was to write him a song. So I wrote him this song to apologize for being unreliable.
I'm unreliable. I never show up for my gigs. You can book me ahead, but I'll be somewhere instead, because I'll always renege. I'm unreliable. I just love to stiff my friends. If I get a better deal or a worse one I feel, let's go, I can always make amends.
False Cap, this is Bob James. I don't know where you are, but the gig starts in 5 minutes. You better hurry up and get here. You're fired. Thank you. Scott, this is Frank Sinatra. Man, if you're not at the gig in 20 minutes, I'm going to break your knees. Scott, is Elvis. Where are you, man? What's up? It's Elvis.
Reliable, You never know what to expect. It's 8:45. I've lost track of the time, but I'll be there to pick up my check. I'm unreliable. I just love to stiff my friends. If I get a better deal or a worse one I feel, let's go, I can always make amends.
All right, so that's Unreliable. And that was a few years later, but that was for my dear friend Gerald Stockton and my custom apology for forgetting a gig that I was supposed to show up for. If Mike's still listening, Mike knows what that's all about, right? Yeah, I don't know if Mike's ever not shown up for a gig, but as a band leader, he knows what it's like to have people not show up for a gig. And he could confirm if that sort of apology would accomplish what was needed to try to mend fences. So, Mike, if it had been you, Mike, just let me know. If you're still in chat, let me know if you think that would have mended the fence. I think it did with Gerald at the time. Okay, back to the story of the development of Big Humor Beat. Now, I think, coincidentally, that the next song I wrote was Hijack, which is what Jarrett Battenberg, my nephew, was asking about in chat. What about Hijack? So I decided to... at the time, I think, there was a period in terrorism way before 9/11 when it was kind of always about the planes getting hijacked, right? So I decided that I wanted to do a tune about that phenomenon. I think it wasn't long after that. I'm trying to remember what happened. Either there was a very famous hijacking or, I don't know, maybe it was when the Gulf War happened. I'm trying to remember. It may have been the Gulf War that just kind of, suddenly it wasn't funny and nobody wanted to hear it. So the timing was really bad when this tune came out. But I think it's funny again. I don't think it ever stopped being funny for some people. I had fun time doing it. And it's cool because my mother and my stepfather, I started to say Jay Battenberg. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm suddenly I'm suddenly perplexed. It's because I'm looking at Battenberg on the screen, and my father-in-law's name is Jay Battenberg, and Jay Barnett is my stepfather, who is no longer with us. Neither is Jay Battenberg, but they were both named Jay, and I'd get them confused all the time in name because they were both named Jay. It was easy. So anyway, Jay Barnett and my mother, Mary Lou, were in this song. I needed people to play the part of terrified passengers as well as a stewardess. which of course we call flight attendants now. Back then they were still called stewardesses, I think. I like the flight attendant. I think that's more respectful for sure. So anyway, I'm going to play you Hijack, which does feature performances by my parents, and it's also a favorite of Jarrett Battenberg's. So let's dig on some Hijack here. Nope. This is it. This is it.
Flight 13 is now boarding, please. Flight 13 is now boarding.
Your seat is right over there, sir, 12D.
Thank you. I'm just going to hang this up here real quick. Hey, is that my friend Jack over there? Hi, Jack.
Did he say hi, Jack?
Oh, no.
Walking through the airport, getting on a plane, leaving on my trip to Bahrain. I can't believe I said it. I lost my mind and now I'm arrested. My face was in the carpet, and half the crew was sitting on my back. They asked me for some ID, I didn't have it on me. Oh no. Hijack! Newsflash, a man at the airport today tried to hijack an airplane. Passenger and crew took him hostage. He says he's innocent. They say they want $1 million ransom. Down, both my feet are bound. I'm hanging from an overhead compartment. They said, how could you do this? I said, I'm just a tourist. Hi, Jack! Now Jack got up to leave. I grabbed onto his sleeve. I said, you gotta tell him who I am. He said, I don't know you. My name is Elmer Hohu. Hi, Jack! Elmer Hohu? Hi, Jack! You gotta be kidding me. Elmer Hohu. Hi, Jack. What's a Hohu? You mean your name isn't Jack? Hohu. You mean I went through all that stuff and your name isn't even Jack? Hi, Jack. Hi, Jack. You mean name's Elmer? What's your name, Jack? I gotta get you here, Jack. Hi, Jack. I always wanted to ride in first class anyway. Hi, Jack. Not upside down. Hohu. Hi, Jack. No more Jacks. No more Jacks. Hi, Jack. No more Jacks. No more Jacks. Hi, Jack. No more Jacks. No more Jacks. Hi, Jack. Hi, Jack. No more Jacks. No more Jacks.
Elmer Hohu. Now, of course, you know, that was, you know, when you're a young songwriter, when you're just getting started, you think, you know, everything's got a rhyme. I don't know you. The only thing I came up with for a name was Elmer Hohu. And I can't remember if I'd heard that name somewhere or if I just invented it, but that's where the name Elmer Hohu came from. It's actually a kind of a fun name, Elmer Hohu. But that was Hijack. That's for Jarrett. And I think that after that, I know I had Hairdo Blues and Hijack and a Fishtail all happened around the same time. We played a Fishtail at the very top of the show. Roach Boogie, I've played you 2 forms of Roach Boogie. There was a third version of Roach Boogie. I'm not sure it's interesting enough to play. But it was like a little more hip-hoppy kind of in its groove. But the next major one that came for me was Monkey Motel. Why, do you say? Why Monkey Motel? I don't know. When these things come to you, they must be birthed. You just have to let them flow. There's no stopping them. So Monkey Motel came around 1991, I guess. 90, 91, somewhere in there. There was a brief period in Amarillo when these tunes were being written, and then a few of them were written in Dallas after we moved to Dallas, and I worked at that place called MPT. But Monkey Motel was a product of, once again, the only thing that came to me was the sound of a monkey followed by a guitar chord followed by Monkey Motel. You know, I I just had to make a song out of that series of sounds. Same thing happened with Moose in My House. 3 pots in from the kitchen with different tones. And then which Paul McKee and I discussed the origins of back when he was on one night. I'll have him come on again sometime when he's available, and we can go deeper into the origins of that sound with us. But that was the beginnings of Moose in My House. Well, then Monkey Motel started to come to me as just some sounds, and then I had to write a story. But I knew it was going to be fast. It was going to be probably even faster and busier, more dramatic than Moose in My House. And I sat down and I started writing the lyrics, and my wife Elizabeth became my editor. And I played them. I would sing them to her. I would show them to her, perform them, say this is how they're going to sound. And she goes, that's okay. Go back and keep working on it. And I go back and do some more. And then I'd come back and she'd go, I like that, but this part here I don't like so much. And I was highly irritated by the input. But I kept going back for it because I knew it was making it better. So the final version, I think it was version 5 or 6, which isn't that many when you think about it. But I'm really pleased with how it came out. I think it may be my favorite of all the lyrics from that period, and it was highly assisted by Elizabeth in forcing me to rewrite it so many times. But I want to play that for you now, and let's see if I can get it over there without constantly restarting another song that we've already heard. Okay, this should be Monkey Motel. And let's turn it up so it hits you in the face right off the bat the way it's supposed to.
Driving all night, I was really tired, looking for a place to stay. Found a little motel on the other side of town, time for me to hit the hay. Went into the lobby, stepped into the counter, told him that I wanted a room. Then I took another look and just about fell down. The desk clerk was a baboon. Monkey Motel! I think I checked into it. Monkey Motel. He gave me the key to room 223, but I couldn't find the elevator door. Saw the vines hanging down from the ceiling to the ground, people swinging floor to floor. Climbed up to 20, the room was pretty funny, there were monkey pictures on the walls. A pile of hay for a bed, on the telephone it said 3 bananas for a local call. Monkey Motel! I think I checked into it. Monkey Motel. Monkey Motel! Guess I'll be staying in it. Monkey Motel. And I almost crashed, and I was still sitting in my car. When you're dreaming and you're driving, you should start realizing that you've driven just a little too far. The sign up ahead said take the next left, and you'll make it to a Motel 3. Park the car, grab my bag, this has got to be a gag. Concierge is a chimpanzee. Monkey Motel! I just found another. Monkey Motel. Monkey Motel. Guess I'll be staying in it. Monkey Motel. Monkey Motel. I checked into it. Monkey Motel. Monkey Motel. I never thought I'd see another. Monkey Motel.
Monkey Motel. That'll wake you up. That's a good morning wake-up tune. Sometimes we'll, if people won't get out of bed when the kids were younger, we'd turn that on real loud. And they could tell you, it does help. It helps you wake up. It helps you wake up with the right spirit, the right attitude about life. When you wake up with the sound of monkeys and really, really fast grooves. So, Monkey Motel happened right before we moved to Dallas, and I continued to write a few more tunes, but mostly kind of pivoted and started working on the production library music and jingle writing and stuff like that. And it was about that time that the idea came to me of, I don't want to keep putting these songs into this morning show service where people take credit and say they wrote the tunes, and even though they still belong to me, everybody's saying, yeah, I wrote this Moose in My House song, or I wrote that Monkey Motel song on their radio stations. I wanted to get credit for it. Well, it was probably too greedy of me to want that. But, I said, okay, I don't want your money anymore to write these songs that you can put out on that network. I'm going to put them out myself. And I began the process of writing a few more tunes and coming up with a final version of what I thought was a full record. What happened at the time was, as I was working on MIDI music, which is musical instrument digital interface is what MIDI stands for, and that's what people use. For those of you who don't know, most of you do, but keyboards at the time were developed. You have a cable that came out of the back that could go into your computer, and you could use software on your computer to program notes that the keyboard would play. You could stack keyboards. You could have all kinds of modules playing things. And now all that stuff is software. You can do it in GarageBand, or you can do it in Logic or Pro Tools or whatever you use. But back then, there weren't any software instruments yet. It was all MIDI information, and then, physical instruments, synthesizers. And I had a big rack full of modules, and I had a couple keyboards, and I would use software to program those things. There was a software at the time called Hybrid Arts. The company, I think, was Hybrid Arts. I forgot what the name of the sequencing software was, but that's what I used to write those tunes and all that library stuff and some of those jingles. And I began coming up with a few other tunes, and I brought all that up because I was so interested in the instruments and the music and the capabilities of what I could do that I kind of got lost in that. And I didn't give as much attention to the humor of it all. So the songs got more sophisticated and more produced, and the lyrics got lazier and more thrown together. And because the music got more sophisticated, maybe they weren't as funny either. They weren't as silly. And that's what kind of took me off track. And that's why when I started sharing all these recordings, I got some interesting feedback from some people. I sent it to a guy at Disney that someone gave me the name to, this person, and he wrote back and he said, I did listen to your stuff and I love the tunes, and you write some great tunes, but your lyrics, man, where are you coming from? You need a real lyricist. So I realized at the time I didn't, because I wasn't humble enough to accept that criticism. But at the time, looking back, I realized that he was pointing out where I had gotten off track writing these things. But it's okay, because the vision was, wouldn't it be fun to make these tunes that jam the way I hear, but didn't write all these silly lyrics over the top? Because other people had done that, like Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa wrote some outrageously bizarre stuff, and some of his lyrics were crazy, but his music was very, very sophisticated. Although sometimes he would make his music funny to go along with supporting the theme of a given tune, but often it was just, I thought it was the same thing. It was kind of the juxtaposition of humor and intense music production and sophisticated writing. But there's only one Frank Zappa, and I ain't going to be Frank Zappa. Craig Slover wants to know if I can still do the monkey call. No, it hurts. I've tried it, and I don't want to do it right now because for some reason today, because of allergies, my throat's a little tight, and I think I might break something. But one of these days, Craig, for you, I'll do it. You keep tuning in, my brother, and I'll give you a monkey call on here. So I'll play a few more. I think they were still a lot of fun, but I've been told they got less funny as time went on. Excuse me. And this may be an example right here. Here's one called Jumbo Dog. And this was me really getting into the writing. There was an artist at the time named Bobby Caldwell that I really loved. And this tune was influenced by some Bobby Caldwell tunes. Shuffles, funk shuffles, you might call them. And great horn writing and stuff. And that's really what I was going for with this tune. I'm trying to cue it up for you. But I'm going to play it. And this is Jumbo Dog. And a good friend of mine, Vince Winkle, is the voice, the Jumbo Dog voice. He's going to be a guest here real soon. And we're going to talk about some of the fun times we've had, as well as revisit a video that we created years ago. A humorous video that it just needs to be revisited. It was an awesome experience in Boston when we created this thing, and we just have continued to laugh forever over this thing. I think we may be the only ones, but we find it very funny. But Jumbo Dog, he's on this, as well as in Dallas. I had a few really, really great singers sing background on this. One of them is Benita Arterberry, who is a great gospel singer, and I don't know what became of Benita. I'm sure great big things. But I know at the time she was one of the group of singers that would sing a lot of jingles in Dallas, travel around and as a group. Eric Tagg was in that group, who is another great singer. I forgot who the others were, but and I apologize. I have their names written down. I just have to go look it up again. I think Debbie Stockton, Gerald Stockton's late beautiful wife, was also one of the singers on the session that we did. But anyway, Benita Arterberry, Eric Tagg, and my friend Vince Winkle is on this. And then the guitar work is by a great guy and wonderful guitarist in Dallas named Bud Guin, who also was a major session figure at the time and probably still is. So, dig it. This is Jumbo Dog.
Feeling some despair. I just signed a Jumbo Dog, chewing on an old Corvair. Don't matter what you got to Jumbo, everything's food. You just might develop an appetite for a pair of shoes. Jumbo, Jumbo, the biggest dog in town. Right fast when you're on your bike, the Jumbo will run you down. Jumbo, Jumbo, every cat's their dream. Take a whiff of his breath and you know what I mean. Jumbo Dog. He don't like you, Jumbo Dog. Jumbo Dog. He don't like you, Jumbo Dog. He might bite you, Jumbo Dog. Gonna bite you, Jumbo Dog. Bad dog. Now he's such you, Jumbo Dog. Just man. Jumbo Dog. Back home, all grown up, riding down the street. Nice to see my old red bike, but I need a higher seat. Around the corner, there's that Jumbo. Take the bike, it just ain't my night. Here we go again. Jumbo, Jumbo, the biggest dog in town. Don't matter how big you are, Jumbo will run you down. Every cat's bad dream. Take your kitty for a walk in the city. You know what I mean. Jumbo, Jumbo. Jumbo Dog. He don't like you, Jumbo Dog. You know, Jumbo likes his tires with a light cream sauce. He might bite you,
Jumbo Dog.
Kiss me.
What the dog? Now he sent you Jumbo Dog.
Here comes that ugly dog.
What will you like from Jumbo Dog? Now he sent you Jumbo Dog.
All right, that was Jumbo Dog. And, oh, I forgot to mention somebody in that tune. Bobby James is the guy singing some of the scatty kind of call and answer stuff along with the background singers. Bobby James I met in Amarillo around 1990. Elizabeth and I lived there for a couple years, a year and a half. And Bobby was the brother of Jimmy James, great guitar player. Bobby, great keyboard player and singer. And these cats played at a, where did they play? They played, I forgot the name of the restaurant, but we went in, and here we were, you know, I'd been in Austin, had been a part of that great music scene. Now I was kind of traveling around. We had a young family. We were in Amarillo for a few years, and I was really hungry to find some music to be a part of, and there was some great stuff happening in Austin. You all, anybody in Amarillo knows the great drummer Jay Weeks, great drummer and singer, and he had a thing happening, and there were a few clubs in town that had some cool stuff going on, but I wasn't a part of anything, and I found this group, the Jameses, and I'm blanking on Jimmy's wife's name. Great singer, but they had a trio, and they played at this restaurant on Friday and Saturday night. I think it was Friday and Saturday, and I went in and heard them. Introduced myself, told them I was a drummer, gave them a little tape, said I'd love to play with you guys sometime. They called me back. They said, yeah, let's do it, and I started playing with them, and we had a great time for the few months that I did that. I can't remember how long it lasted, but it was terrific fun. I loved playing there with them, and they were so talented, and the crowd that came out was really cool. And so when I got down to Dallas and I was working on this stuff, I thought about Jimmy, or Bobby anyway, the voice you heard, and I had him come down and sing on this and a few other tunes, and he was just terrific. He also sings on one called Big Pants. And I'm not seeing Big Pants on the playlist. Somehow I think I lost that one in the upload. So I'll have to play that one another time. But there are a few other tunes I could play. Let me think. There's Slappin' the Sleepwalker. There's Shut Up and Dance. If you guys are digging the groove, Craig said his wife was dancing around. So if you guys are digging the groove, maybe I should play another one that's got a nice groove. And I think that would probably be Shut Up and Dance. The idea with Shut Up and Dance was, I don't even remember what it was. As the story goes, it's just meeting a girl at a club and going out on the dance floor and maybe getting a little too flirty and getting slapped and, and shut up and dance and, that whole kind of thing. In today's, world of where we're more sensitive to the overreach that guys have done throughout history, I don't know if it's funny anymore. But I don't think people have lost their sense of humor about this kind of thing. So I think I will play it. And then you guys can tell me if you think in any way it sounds out of touch with the times we're living in. Just say it right into chat if you think so. Because I do take that stuff seriously and people's thoughts about that stuff. But anyway, Shut Up and Dance features, again, some of those background singers along with Bobby, who does some great call and response kind of stuff on this one. There's a great saxophonist in Dallas that played on it. I forgot his name. I apologize to him, but he was terrific. And the guitar on this one, I think, was Mitch Watkins on Shut Up and Dance, who plays great on it. Mitch plays great on anything he plays on. So I'm going to play Shut Up and Dance for you right now, and hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Walking downtown at 1:15, looking for a place to have some fun. All decked out in my dancing suit, new credit card and a haircut to boot. There we were on the dance floor, the woman of my dreams. Then I tried to kiss her, and she slapped me and screamed, "Shut up and dance." I don't like romance.
She don't like romance.
I tried to hold her hand. She hit me in the face with a frying pan.
Yeah.
I pulled my nose back out of my face. Guess you could say I didn't make it. First base. Here's another guy thinks he's got the stuff. Maybe I just want him, that the lady is rough. Now they're on the dance floor. He thinks that she's a queen. Oops, he tried to kiss her. You ever seen the queen scream? Shut up and dance. I don't like romance.
She don't like romance.
He tried to hold her hand. She hit him on the head with a trash can. Back out on the dance floor, she said, "Sorry, I apologize. Didn't mean to hurt you, but you better get wise. Shut up and dance." I don't like romance.
She just don't like it.
I tried to hold her hand. She popped me in the face with a rubber band. Shut up and dance. I don't like romance.
She don't like romance.
He tried to hold her hand. She hit him in the face with a fresh baked ham. Shut up and dance. I don't like romance.
Shut up, I don't like
I tried to hold her hand. She hit me in the face with a frying pan. Shut up and dance. I don't like romance. I tried to hold her hand. She hit him on the head with a trash can.
Here's a little shut up and dance for you. So that was one of the last ones that I wrote actually for that collection. You know, these headphones sound real different when you have a hat like this on. But I had intended to wear a hat like this for this show because I think it helps you get into the groove, you know, wear something funny. And I tried to wear a funny t-shirt. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is a pizza place in Austin that we love to go to called The Onion. Bless their hearts. I hope they're making it through this period. So many businesses are struggling. Austin today got the news that we lost Threadgills and we lost Magnolia Cafe on Lakeline Boulevard. Not the one on South Congress. Hopefully they stay alive. But, oh, my God, to lose some of these places is just so hard. They're so important. They're such a big part of the town, of the Austin vibe. Anyway, this pizza place is called The Onion, and it says, "The best pizza you'll never remember eating." I think that's a terrific slogan. I love that slogan. And the people that run this place are sweethearts, and they make great pizza, and I miss visiting them and eating their pizza. So I hope we get to get out in the not too distant future in a safe way and can have some more of that good locally made food by the lovely local people that need to retain their sense of purpose and make the money they need to survive. And God, this is such a weird thing we're going through. So many thoughts have passed through my head in the last few days. Well, for all of us over the whole time we've been going through it. But I not to pause from the humor for just a second. I saw something today. I was reading something, and it really kind of struck a chord with me. It would be the stuff of a really interesting conversation on this. But it said one of the things that this virus does is cause your immune system to overreact, or it shows maybe how out of balance the immune system in many of us has become with the way we live, so that the immune system doesn't know how to defend you fully against this thing. I don't know how medically accurate that is, but it was coming from a biologist who apparently had the credentials. And I think I've heard this other places too, that there are almost some HIV type problems with it at times, in the same way HIV causes an immune system to kind of go haywire, or collapse, or overcompensate and hurt you. Other things, cancer, different things that do that. But I think that this author was making the point that it's incredible that I'm trying to be serious while I'm wearing this hat. I don't know what I was thinking when I went off on this tangent. So I'll wrap this up fast. He was saying that we have, in some ways, we've overreacted financially too. All this money flooding the economy, and especially going to those who need it the least under the circumstances. That is the same kind of overreaction that our immune system is having to the virus that's hurting so many people. So maybe there's something to think about there. I mean, it's a little too late to pull back on the spigot of the money printing, but if we come out of it, maybe we learn some things that help us. So since I put us in that serious mood, although I'm sure that the hat counteracted it so that you're still with me on the humor front. And I noticed that Mac McDonald joined, who is one hell of a cool dude, great engineer. I don't know if he came and left, but if you're there, Mac, I'm going to play one for you, brother. I've been playing the humorous stuff tonight from the one Lanningham humor release record years ago. And I've got one that is probably the most lyrically misguided or strange of all of the tunes I wrote. But musically, it's a whole lot of fun. It's probably the most aggressive of all of them. I don't know, Monkey Motel's pretty aggressive. But this one has some really cool Mitch Watkins guitar in it. And it's a tune I call Slappin' the Sleepwalker. Why? I don't know. I was, at this point, as I said, I was getting lazy with my lyric writing. I was getting way more into the music. And I just thought, Slappin' the Sleepwalker sounds cool. So that was my chorus. And then I had to write a song that led into that chorus. So I talked about, being asleep and wandering the streets and, people trying to wake me up or something. I don't know. You'll hear it. But mostly I was into the music, which was why I wrote this tune. And it's funny, it started with a little production library music cut that I wrote when I was working at MPT, and then I took kind of the core of that and I built it into a song and a much more embellished tune that became Slapping the Sleepwalker. So I'm going to play that, and we're pretty close to wrapping up here. I know I've droned on for a long time, but I'll come back. I might end with something a little different, a little more gentle, or maybe I'll play a fishtail again. I don't know. But this is Slapping the Sleepwalker. So that's Slapping the Sleepwalker. You see what I mean? The story-wise, lyric-wise, the collapse of the humor continued while the music got more and more sophisticated. I don't know. Maybe somebody laughed at that. I don't know. But as I listen to it now, I'm like, what was I thinking with those lyrics? But, oh, did I have fun with the tune. And I would love to have, now I listen to it and I think how fun it would be to cut it with a lot of real instruments instead of just MIDI stuff, especially the horns and the drums. I don't know why I didn't play drums on it. I mean, drums are my thing, so. Maybe I'll recut that someday and create some real lyrics for it. But that was a lot of fun, and I thought Mitch Watkins' guitar playing on it was just badass, man. Don't y'all agree? Now, it's getting late. I know it's 11:07. My gosh, everybody needs to go to bed because they got to get up and work. So for the wrap-up for the night, I'm thinking I could play a Fishtail one more time for those that missed it at the very top of the show. And I think it's a little gentler. It's a nice one to go out on. And in the future, before I go, I did want to mention something. For those of you who haven't heard this, I started about 2 weeks ago. I came on one night when I was missing talking to friends and missing playing music. I also just love to share music. I had so much fun over so many years especially when I was young, listening parties, with a good friend or a group of friends. I did it when I was young, when I was very young in Colorado. When I first got into jazz with my father, he's the one that really got me started in it. And my mom too. She loved a lot of great music, Broadway tunes and stuff. So we'd listen to music at home. But I used to invite friends over and play stuff for them, and it was the old perpetual lift the needle up, here, dig these 2 bars, and then, I want to play this half of this song and listen to these 2 notes in this tune. I did a lot of that. So this was kind of my way of getting back into just sharing tunes with people and playing them. And then I thought how it's fun to bring certain friends on and guests and, those that are in some cases accomplished musicians, and in other cases maybe it'd be fun to have all kinds of folks come on and just talk about some of our favorite tunes and listen together, have listening parties. So that's kind of what this has become. I've had a few guests, a few wonderful professional musician guests that have really graced the show. Last Saturday, a phenomenal classical, and as they say in his on his website or the writings about him, classical crossover pianist John Bayless came on as a guest. And John is an enormous talent, had some very, very popular classical recordings, crossover classical recordings in the 80s and the 90s. He still is making music even after having had a stroke and losing the use of one of his hands and one of his arms. He can't play with both hands anymore. He plays with one. But it is outstanding what he's able to do. We listened to some of his records on Saturday night and talked a lot about his memories as a player, his great experiences, how he's coped with being able to play with one hand. Thanks, Craig. Thanks for coming, man. And you can hear that one in the archives at scottlanningham.com/slradio. So SCOTTLANNINGHAM.com/slradio. Go there. You can check out the archives of the shows as I get them posted over time. A number of them are up there. Paul McKee, Tina Lear, great singer-songwriter Tina Lear, great trombonist and jazz educator Paul McKee, old roommate of mine. We talk about some humor too. Passenger, a great Austin band with Roscoe Beck, Steve Metter, Mitch Watkins, Paul Ostermeyer. They came on last Thursday, and we talked about their amazing band in the 70s and 80s and their work with Leonard Cohen over many years. And the great Jennifer Warnes, Grammy-winning singer, that is close with those guys, and they did a lot of work with her. She came on and joined the discussion. It was a great discussion about some of the glory years of Austin music. And then, of course, John on Saturday, which was fantastic. And there's more to come. I'm working on some other interviews with other guests and different kinds of things, some more musicians, maybe some other types of things. But music's always going to be at the core of it. Oh, I can't believe I forgot to mention Church on Monday, the great band I'm on, and that we've played every Monday for 7 years at the Continental Gallery. We'll still be doing, we had a show with those guys, Elias Hasslinger, Dr. James Polk, Tommy Howard, Daniel Litdew Durham, the bassist, was not able to make it, but we'll get him on another time. We had a good show with those guys too. So those are all in the archives. You can find them on my website. I'm going to play A Fishtail one more time for you, and then I'm going to close it out for tonight. And I'll be back soon with some more interesting stuff to share. It's not always going to be humorous, as you know. This is just a once-in-a-while thing. But I was feeling like playing some of these songs tonight and kind of, reminisce about them and giggle a little bit and share some stories about them. So I'm going to wrap it up with one more performance of A Fishtail. And I'll just sign off on that, and you guys have a great rest of the night and great week. And watch Facebook for messages about next episodes coming, or my YouTube channel. I don't remember the URL, but if you just go on YouTube and you Google my name, or Scott Lanningham, you'll find my channel. So anyway, here's A Fishtail with my brother Doug. Good night to everybody. See you all soon. Night, Triana. Buenas noches to you too.
Now we're going to tell you a story about the dogfish. He originated off the island of Belize. Down in Central America, old British Honduras country. Yeah, that's where it began. He has a long journey for that old dogfish, but he managed to scurry on up into the Gulf. That is by way of the Bow River. Bo's here to tell you all about it. Journey out in the Gulf by way of some water, my ladies and gentlemen friends. There's water out there in case you didn't know it. That's where the dogfish plays. Well, it just so happened on our big old boat called the Truman, Bo happened to be propped up on the wheel, done lost a balance, spun around, hit a head on the back.